Okay, good morning everyone. It's 10:45. Let's get started. How's Ignite so far? Loud? Are you guys controlling the volume there? Thanks. There. Okay, welcome again. Thank you very much for coming to this session. This session is about data center integration with service management automation. I'm Ravi Chintalapudi. I'm one of the program managers in System Center, working on Orchestrator, SMA, Azure Automation. By the way, these are all built by same team. You must have heard these 3 different teams, but it's built by same engineering team. With me, I have.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm also a PM on the Service Management Automation team and Azure Automation team.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. So a few logistics before we get started. There's a lot of content and demos we have, so we'll be happy to take the questions at the end of the session. And I think after this is a lunch break. So me and Alex will stand here to answer your questions. We'll not get a lunch until we answer all your questions. And we also have our email addresses there. You can reach out to us anytime. And we're also available in the booth duty. Lastly, you must have received some paper handouts, few of you or many of you that. Please fill it up. We are really looking forward to get your feedback to improve your product. As part of the survey, we also are asking if you're interested to work closely with the engineering team, where we can share our progress and saying the feedback, what we are getting, how we are doing that. We can involve you throughout the release cycle and take the feedback and do it in a faster turn there. So please do that. We take that very seriously and we review the feedback. Okay, with that, we get to the session objectives. Before I started the session, I did talk to a few people to understand your background of Orchestrator or SMA or Azure Automation. So can I trouble you to please?
You need to change the view. It's hard to read.
This is the one. Thanks for that. Better? Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So I was talking to a few of you to understand your background, like SCO, SM, and Orchestrator. But I want to get a pulse of overall audience so that I can change the presentation, tailor it to the best needs of the audience. So can I please ask you to raise your hands if you are familiar with Orchestrator? Awesome. That's pretty much all the room. Love it. SMA, Service Management Automation. That's what I call it. Reduced to half. Azure Automation. So it's more or less that's good. I'll promise you this is my last question. PowerShell workflow, PowerShell's, whoa, awesome. Okay, I'll be using all 4 of them in the meeting, so that's why I asked about this stuff. Okay, so what we'll talk, I'll start with what is service management automation. Since many folks are not there, we'll give an overview of service management automation. And more importantly, we'll talk about how to use this with Orchestrator, how they are completely complementary with each other, how they are interoperable with each other. Then we'll talk about all the migration tools we are building, so you can migrate your runbooks, if you are interested, from Orchestrator to Azure Automation or to SMA, preserving all your structures, business processes, loops, condition joins, and we're going to demo that. The code is very agile, just started coding it, so fingers crossed, hope everything will work there. And next thing we'll focus on the core data center integration scenarios. How can you use SMA to manage your heterogeneous environments? Public clouds, Azure, AWS, we give equal love to all clouds. Or on-prem servers like Microsoft Stack or non-Microsoft, VMware, OpenStack. So we'll walk through some of the demos. And finally, I'll wrap up with the vNext plans. Key takeaways. I'm pretty sure you must have been attending hundreds of sessions and getting tons and tons, terabytes of data into your thing. But these are the 4 things I want you to remember when you go out of this session. The first thing is, as you can see, SCO and SMA are completely interoperable with each other. They can talk to each other. Within SMA, I can call Orchestrator runbooks. From SMA, I can call Orchestrator runbooks. From Orchestrator, I can call SMA runbooks. SMA offers truly a bidirectional integration, which means that SMA can talk to any third-party system can talk to SMA. With SMA, you can manage whether it's a private cloud, public cloud, or heterogeneous environments. With one tool, you can manage all the stuff. And the last thing is, as a product team, we are building the migration tool, so we are going to carry forward your Orchestrator investments. So with that, So we'll get started. So you must have seen this slide for many years, at least the last 2-3 years you must have seen this slide. This talks about the value prop or the core principles what we have in our team. So whether it's Orchestrator or SMA or Azure Automation, the value prop is same. It's all about integration, orchestration, and automation. So let's get into some details. So we know customers like you, or many customers like you, use different tools, different processes, different technologies, Microsoft, non-Microsoft. So it's very important for us to build the solutions which can integrate with all this process so that you can go automate this business process and concentrate on other business critical issues. That's exactly what SCO and SMA is built for. So we provide the integration platform. So if you look at Orchestrator, most of you are familiar with, you have integration packs, standard activities, which helps you talk to different systems. With service management automation, I'll refer as SMA from on. With SMA and Azure Automation, you have the integration modules. So you can talk to any external system. So once you have this integration platform, next thing is about orchestrating your business process, which you know better than anyone else. For that, with Orchestrator, we have given you a graphical experience where you can drag and drop the runbooks and create your own business process. With SMA, you have a textual editor. You have a PowerShell expert, you can go author in a PowerShell. With Azure Automation, you have both, a textual as well as graphical experience where you can author your business experience. You must have seen that throughout this week. In the last few days, we announced Azure Automation graphical authoring. There's some more deep dives happening this week, throughout this week. So that's about orchestration. The final is about automation. Once you go take your integration tools, then you orchestrate your business process, then you go automate to increase your ROI, reduce the TCO. So the value prop or the core principle have not changed in all these products. That's the point I want to go out with. So now let's switch gears and get into service management automation capabilities. So what is service management automation? In very simple words, it's an IT process automation tool for your Windows Azure Pack environment. I personally think it as a feature add for Orchestrator. Like if you look at Orchestrator has the support for everything, but there's a little support of PowerShell. You can use run.NET or run program. But with SMA, you have a native PowerShell script. The native PowerShell supports. There's a huge support for PowerShell. That's why I personally think is a feature add for Orchestrator. So SMA gives you the power to automate the complete life cycle of your resources, right? From creation, deployment, monitoring of your resources in Windows Azure Pack environment. It's built on PowerShell. So you inherit all the great features of PowerShell, highly scalable, availability, and the huge community behind that. But I'm going to talk about 3 features. First one is the web-based authoring. So while we support a PowerShell IC, where you can author your runbooks there and import in the system, SMA itself provides a rich textual editor where you can go test, author, test, debug your runbooks, which has got a built-in IntelliSense, and you also have centralized management. Second thing is highly available engine. As I said, it's built on PowerShell. So you get this cool, all the great features of PowerShell, like checkpoint, suspend, resume. SMA offers a centralized management for your runbooks, assets, global settings, stuff. So it's worth talking about checkpointing. And being in PowerShell, I'm pretty sure most of you heard of this checkpointing feature there. Imagine a provisioning scenario. It's running well, and all of a sudden it failed. It would be a nightmare for IT admins to diagnose what step it failed. How do I recover from this VM, what it is? If it is Orchestrator, you would have restarted the whole thing there. But with SMA, you have the power with your developers to put the checkpoints based on your failure points. So you can always start from that failure point rather than always the first. So that's the power of the checkpointing. Third thing I also want to talk about is integration. How does integration really happen? As I was talking about, it happens through integration modules, which is the PowerShell modules. Whether you pick up a PowerShell module from a Codeplex, or you pick up from one of the Microsoft-supported download release, or you author your own integration module. I think we have some session on also creating custom modules. We show that. You can import on a system, and using that, you can talk to any of our external systems. Throughout our demos, we'll be actually using the integration modules. You can actually see them live. Okay, now let's get some basics of, I've got SMA environment, I understood about it, how do I author my runbooks? So one thing you have to remember, SMA supports PowerShell workflows. It's a little bit different than native PowerShell. So we support PowerShell workflows, and you need to author the PowerShell workflows. You can use an ISE, the PowerShell ISE environment, or we can use the textual editor which is built in the product. I'll walk you through this demo when I'm actually showing that stuff. And once you have the runbooks, you need to have the resources associated with that. The resources could be the variables that you can use in runbooks, the schedules which you want to associate a runbook to run on a particular schedule, the connections which help you to talk to different systems. This is equivalent to the connections what you use in Orchestrator. And credentials, certificates, which you want to use that in your runbooks. All these things are grouped as assets. And that's where, when you're managing assets, that's where you import the integration modules, you export the runbooks, import the runbooks. And right within the runbook, once you created any of your assets, like variables, credentials, right within the runbook, you can browse and insert them instead of going out to a different window, picking them and coming back. And the next thing is, if you're familiar with Orchestrator, everyone must have used runbook tester. So we carried forward the same concept where you can go test a runbook right within that output window, rather than going out somewhere and testing it. So you can test, debug, and before you're up to production. Okay, so I've authored my runbooks. Everything is great. Now, how do I manage my runbooks? So that's what this slide talks about. So what we do is once you log into SMA portal, you get an overall dashboard view, which tells me how many runbooks I have. What are my jobs which are failing at the top, which I need my attention? How many modules I have? What's my global assets I have? And I can change this over a period of time. Once I take a particular runbook and drill through that, I'll get a dashboard for the runbook, which is like how many jobs I have for this runbook, complete history of that, complete auditing information about that runbook, who created that runbook, when was it published, what state it is in right now. When that's in the runbook dashboard, you can actually see, this is the main dashboard, what you see in the screen there. In the runbook dashboard, you can also go author your runbooks. You can also see the jobs. You can also configure a runbook. The configuration is primarily if you want extra information about your verbose logs, enable verbose logs, you can actually all do that stuff. And once you drill through a job, you can get a complete history of your job history, input parameters, output parameters, and also that's where you can suspend and resume. Okay. You must have seen this architecture diagram in TechNet documentation and many other blogs and everything there. Pretty standard. We have a portal. Service management portal, that's where you do all your operations. Anything you do there that hits a web service takes a request, process it, puts the request in our database, and there are runbook workers. These are the ones which process your jobs, process it, and sends it back. I'm going to show another detailed architecture diagram because you have already seen this many places. Okay, the reason I included this architecture diagram is twofold. First thing is I want to show you the detailed steps, what happens at the back when someone starts a runbook. How is that actually working there? Second thing I want to emphasize on the core principles or design principles what we had. Our core design principle was to architect the code with the right set of abstractions so we can take the same architecture and ship it online or on-prem. The only difference would be the execution artifacts or storage artifacts. For example, if I take the same architecture, I can deploy in the cloud, then I'll be using SQL Azure instead of SQL. Take the same architecture, push it on-prem, I'll be using SQL. So those are the things. I'll walk you through that step by step. So when I go to service management automation and I do some operations, say start a runbook. That's operations. That gets picked up by web service. In case of Windows Azure Pack SMA, that will be a Catal web host. In case of Azure, it will be a web role. When it gets to the queues, in case of on-prem solution SMA, that will be in our database. In case of Azure, we'll be using table queues. And that's where it goes to job queues, and that's where our runbook workers pick up the diagram what you have seen earlier. And then it goes, processes the job underneath that, and it goes to storage abstractions. So this will be a different database in case of a cloud versus this one. So that's how we architected our code so that we can ship the same architecture either way. Okay. Now let's switch the gears and go to a topic where, since there are so many folks in Orchestrator, I've got this question so many times, and even the conference in the last 2 days, we have heard it so many times. Great, we are talking about SMA, but we have invested in Orchestrator. When should I use what? When should I use Orchestrator? When should I use SMA? And how do you position them? I'll just put more like a usage. When should I use what? So the answer is very simple. If you are in a traditional data center, and if you're using the graphical authoring, like integration packs, please continue to use Orchestrator. And if you are in the new Cloud OS or have Windows Azure Pack environment, you should be thinking about SMA. And other scenarios where I think about SMAs, I've seen some customers saying that, hey, we have a bunch of PowerShell scripts, PowerShell workflows lying around. We want a process around them. We want some management around them. We want some access around them. That's where you should think about SMA, where you can bring all your PowerShell scripts into SMA, where you can get a centralized management of that. The other important question I've been hearing is, let me step back before. Our product team continue to invest in SCO and SMA. In the sense, we're going to make targeted improvements. They are not going away. We are releasing System Center 2016. We will have both SCO and SMA, because we heard this question so many times in the last 2 days. Hey, is SCO going to go away? What's going to happen to SCO? Am I dead? I think most of the people are using SCO here, so they have this question. That's why I want to re-emphasize. There will be a System Center 2016, and we are shipping SCO and SMA with that. Okay, so the next big question I've been hearing from our customers like you from many times is, okay, great, I have Orchestrator, I've invested heavily, I've been using it for quite some time. At the same time, I want to try out your SMA without disrupting my Orchestrator. Are they interoperable? Can they work together? And the answer is absolutely yes. They are interoperable with each other. They can talk to each other. So from SMA, I can talk to Orchestrator runbooks. From Orchestrator, I can talk to SMA runbooks. And the integration is possible, by integration modules. In my demo, I'll actually walk you through that. I've linked a blog which talks about step-by-step how do you actually do that, including the runbook examples. You can just download and start using that. And with that, I'll stop talking and I'll show the demo. Okay, so this is my SMA environment. So what I'll do is I'll first go through the scenario. The two demos I'll show in this scenario. The first scenario is from within SMA, I'll be calling an Orchestrator runbook. So first I'll go through the scenario. I'll kick off the runbook. While it is running, I'll give a quick tour of SMA, since there are only like few people in the world people have seen SMA portal. So this is the Service Management Automation portal, the Catal portal. Okay, so in order to do my scenario of from SMA calling Orchestrator runbooks, there are 4 steps. The first step is I need to know what runbook in Orchestrator I'm going to call. So I'll go to my step 1. So I'll go to my Orchestrator environment. So this, I've created a folder called Ignite 2015 SCO SMA, and I created a simple runbook. All it does is takes the input, 2 inputs, initializes it, and returns that data. Just inputs and everything do that stuff. So I've identified my runbook. Then I'll go back to my SMA environment. So I've been telling from along that the integration happens using integration modules. So I'll go to my assets. And you can see this integration module called Orchestrator Service, which gets installed by default. You don't have to worry about that. This has got all the commandlets. And I'll be using one of the commandlets called Start Automation Runbook, Start Orchestration Runbook. That's what I'll be using to do that. That's my step 2. Step 2 is done. Step 3 is about creating a connection to my Orchestrator environment, so they can actually connect and run the process and do that stuff. So I'll say again Orchestrator. So if you look at this is Orchestrator environment, I'm using it. Talks about username, password, what domain I'm connecting to, the standard terms it asks for. Okay, my step 3 is done, where I created the connection to that. Now I'll go to the runbook, which actually is called that. So I call start SCO with RB parameters. And if you look at, that's the runbook I was actually calling, RB with params. So I go to my SMA environment. I'll quickly show the runbook. So if you look at, this is the path what we have selected, Ignite 2015 SCO SMA with parameters. And I created a connection object, so I'm actually using that connection, orchestration connection, what I created here. Rest of using the URLs, credentials, talking to Orchestrator runbook. This is the URL used, this is the credentials what used, there is the runbook path. and all it does combines the stuff and prints an output. Okay, so we'll say Ignite 2015. Hello. Okay, it's starting. Runbook, and this is what we have seen. This is what exactly happening at the back end. The architecture, what I showed, is going step by step. So while it's running, I'll take a few minutes to give a quick tour for the folks who have not seen service management automation. So this is the service management automation portal. It's part of the Windows Azure pack, and our extension is called automation there. So this is the main dashboard I was talking about, where you can see all the jobs we have, which you have attention. The one which we just started shows completed right now. It shows the time over the time period, how many jobs failed, suspended. It gives you a quick glance of how many runbooks I have, which are in edit, how many modules I have, how many assets I have. And if I just go drill down on that, it talks about, like, this gives a dashboard of the runbook, which gives me, again, number of jobs that fail, something which need your attention immediately, some sort of auditing information, who published it, when was it done, what status it is, and you can see the jobs associated with that. And you can actually author this runbook. That's where you can see the author. And you can attach a runbook to a schedule. Again, this is part of the assets you created. Then you actually go configure a runbook. This is what I was talking about, where you can enable additional logging if you want, verbose progress. So let's go back to this runbook. Got completed. Says output. Other thing is, what I can do is, if I go back to my scope, and if I refresh it, I should be able to see that 9:05. Actually, I'm using, my machine is still in West Coast, so that's now showing that time. So at 9 o'clock, it got created a job in Runbook Designer, so it is actually invoking that runbook and running that. Okay, so that completes my first scenario. From within SMA, I'm calling an orchestrator runbooks. Let's do the other way around. From orchestrator, I'm calling SMA runbooks. Again, the steps are 4. First step is you identify which runbook I want to call from SMA. So I've created a simple runbook. I believe I call combines strings. I took the same runbook. So this is the runbook I call. So I'll be going to my SCO environment. I have a runbook called start SMA runbook. In order to do this action, I was talking about module. Again, we use a module here. You have to install an orchestrator SMA module onto the runbook worker machine, where your runbook worker is. And that module is available when you go to SCO installation page or SMA installation page. There's a separate install called module. Install that on a machine where you have runbook worker. The simple runbook I have, and all the logic, what I have here is in that. This I'll quickly walk through. All I'm using is all variables. Like I'm using SMA web service. I'm using some endpoint, same endpoint. I'm using same SMA computer. And here you should see the name of the runbook I'm actually calling from this one, combined springs. This is the name of the SMA runbook I'm calling. Okay, so let me start this in a runbook tester. You can use orchestration console, or you can use runbook tester. I would say Ignite 2015. Instead of hello, I would say now welcome. So one thing to mention is Orchestrator is a 32-bit process. You all know that. But PowerShell requires a 64-bit process to run. So this script uses PowerShell remoting to actually go run this script there. So when I go to my SMA environment, I should, for that combined springs, I should see a job being created. Let's go back here. Say it's still running. It's completed. So when I come back here, it's exactly 5:06, 9:09. I think that's exactly the time right now. It got created. So welcome Ignite 21. So this where we have seen from Orchestrator, you're actually calling a SMA runbook. All these runbooks, all these examples are available in that blog which I pointed out. So you can just, if you're interested, you can go download that. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay, next we'll talk about how are we going to carry forward our Orchestrator investments? So when we say Orchestrator investments, I know that a lot of customers are using Orchestrator here. I personally know at least 50 customers who've been having 600 to 1,000 runbooks. That means that they made a heavy investment in Orchestrator, and they're continuing to make that investments. The question is, how do I carry forward this if I want to go to the cloud? If I want to try out the new cloud, Azure Automation or SMA, how do I ensure that all my investments is not wasted? These are all my business process, which is running my production environments. So I don't want to lose them. I'm pretty sure that's the question from most of you guys. So we have invested a lot in our migration tools. We'll talk about that. So when we say Orchestrator investments, what does it mean? It is the runbooks we are talking about. And how do you create the runbooks? Either you use the integration packs, whether you pick up the Microsoft supported and released integration packs, or the integration packs what you must have authored on your own, or you must have done some standard activities, or finally you must be using the runbook constructs like loops, joins, conditions there. So you must have authored the runbooks with this. So our approach was the same thing there. The first thing what we said is, hey, let's think about integration packs. How do I make them usable in Azure Automation SMA? So we created some IP converter tool. It's called Integration Pack Converter. And sorry for the music. Okay, so what it does is it takes an OIP file and converts into a PowerShell module, which you can import into an either Azure Automation or SMA. And I'll actually walk through that demo. Similarly, with standard activities, we took all the 74 standard activities, we reviewed each one of them, and we created a module of that, and you can import them, either of them. I'll actually walk through all this details thing today. The last thing is about a migration tool, where you can export a runbook from scope, import that into Azure Automation. You can see the graphical authoring there. Everything gets preserved, and you can run it locally, either or in the cloud. I'm going to show that too. And lastly, the service management connector. If you are using a lot of service manager integration scenarios, we use a connector as well. That's something we're thinking about work. First three things we are already working. The last thing is we have yet to start to work on that. So I'll get a little bit details on the integration pack converter. So this is a migration tool to convert your integration packs. It's a wizard-based tool. So what it does is takes an OIP file. The first step does it cracks open all the activities, shows you all the activities, and it gives you a flexibility to change. You think, hey, I'm not going to use certain activities. I'm going to remove some other activities. They're absolute. It allows you to do that. I want to add more activities. I want to change some properties. It allows you to do that. And finally, it allows you to make all the modifications. It builds a PowerShell module. Other cool thing what we have done is just for Microsoft supported and released integration packs, we've converted them into PowerShell modules, and we're going to upload them in the download center. So you just don't have to worry about converting them. You can just download and use it. But if you have created your own integration packs, you can use this tool to convert them. And the next thing is standard activity converter. So what we have done with the standard activity is we took all the 74 activities, we reviewed each of them, we looked at there's an equivalency in PowerShell. Yes, if there's an equivalency in PowerShell, we took the PowerShell. If there is some equivalency but some of the functionality is not there, we try to create a wrapper. And if there's no equivalency, we completely create a wrapper just to preserve the functionality so that you would not lose your functionality, whatever you're using in your runbooks, just to preserve your all the investments we made. End of this, we get a PowerShell module. We can import them in either world, SMA or Azure Automation. So the releasing these two, release dates for these two. So both will be in a migration toolkit, which should come out pretty much anytime today or before Friday. I signed up the release last night, 12:30. So the other folks who have to sign off will come out. We'll also ship the converted modules along with that, so you can download and try out. This will be a beta version. Try out and give us the feedback. And we'll try to get targeting to release sometime summer or end of the year for the production release. But we'll be making some more releases before that. Okay? So I'll actually demo these two things right now. In the interest of time, I'll quickly go through that. Load up my integration pack migrator. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this is the integration pack converter. First thing is I'm going to select a file. This will be my OIP file. So I'll take SharePoint. So 2 IPs I'll show. One is a very simple path. Everything shows green. So it's loading, trying to read that. Shows the metadata of the information. Well, then this is a step where it cracks open all the activities and loads up all the activities. So if you have not changed any path, if you have not modified that, and you're installing the same machine where you have an OIT installed, everything should be like this. Everything should be green. And for monitoring, as you can see, there's a warning. It gives you a clear description of that. So when we are building this migration tool, we didn't have an inbuilt solution for the monitoring. So we put a placeholder. So anytime there is a no inbuilt solution, we put some placeholders. And we'll also warn you, hey, it contains a monitor activity. What do you like to do? Do you want to remove it, or you can continue that? And this is where I was talking about when you can select an activity, you can remove them if you think, hey, I'm no longer using it, I don't care about it. So I'll move on. Okay, I'll continue with my, I don't care about one thing, so I'll continue with this. It shows all the connection info. It shows the files what you're adding, and you can just go select. Probably I'll put on the desktop. It's already there. So it's already created a SharePoint module here. So let me show you one more thing where you have to make some modifications. This time I'll pick up FTP IP. Boom, a lot of errors. That means something got changed, my file path got changed, I'm using from a different machine. But simple, if you go hover on any of this one, it exactly tells you what to do. It says that it's missing the core FTP DLL. Select this, I select my integration pack DLL. Boom, but still there are some issues. Let me check what are those issues. It says that this activity contains a parameter named error action that conflicts with the common PowerShell parameters. So we have done some additional validation to check if you have used some names which actually conflicts with something so that you don't end up in conflicts later. So it's very simple to fix this. Go, select that thing which is having a problem, and say call it as error action 1. Similarly, same thing for that. So I'll go select that. Okay, this should clear up everything. Awesome. Cool, I'll take all defaults, nothing has changed, and I'll select again my desktop to do this. It's already there, and we got it there. So now I'll go to my SMA environment. I'll actually import them into the system. For the interest of time, I know import takes a little bit more time, so I've actually imported that. So if I go to my assets, modules, I can see my SharePoint module, and you can actually see I just imported yesterday because of the interest of time there, and you can see all the activities, whatever it is in scope, you have the same activities with the same set of commandlets here. I want to show FTP. Similarly, the same thing with FTP connection, you have all the activities you have here in the summary. The interesting thing I want to show you is the standard activities. So this is the Microsoft System Center standard activities I was talking about, where we created a module for all your standard activities, all the 74, and you can see them, all of them loading up here. With preserving everything, we just added a prefix or in between, it's called SCO, but everything should have all the 74 activities, preserving all the properties, processing all the inputs, outputs are there, and this has been thoroughly tested. Okay, that completes my this thing. Let me go to the next cool thing, runbook migration. So this is the one we just started working about, like say 3 weeks back, but I really want to get out and show something. Pretty early builds, so there could be a lot of bugs there, but I want to show out the work, what we are doing, so you can see what's happening. So these are the steps you need to think when you are thinking about runbook migration, if you want to take some of your existing business process to the cloud. First thing is, for the supported, first thing, integration packs. You have to convert them into modules and load into your new system. For that, if it's Microsoft supported integration packs, just download them in some step. If you have created your own integration packs, use this tool, what I just showed you, to convert into PowerShell modules, then import it into the system. The next thing is import the converted standard modules, standard activities that will be readily available. You can download and import it. And third thing is you just export your runbook from SCO, import into Azure Automation, because that's have the graphical authoring right now. And from there, it can run anywhere, either a cloud or an on-prem. And lastly, an important thing, there's some manual fix-up. It's not like automatic, you do export and import, everything will work fine. Some activities might have changed, some have been absolute. So you require some manual fix-up, and we're trying our best to make that very clear. So we'll make a visual indicator. The one I showed you earlier, like warnings, color-coded, will clearly show you, hey, this is where the fix-up needs. So you can easily fix up that. And let me convert to the machine demo, and I'll actually show you this stuff. Okay, I no longer need this. Okay, so this is my SCO environment. This is the runbook I've selected, which I want to export and import into Azure Automation. As you can see, it has got links, it's got splits. And what's this runbook doing? Very simple. It's creating a folder and a C drive, and it's generating some random text, and is also using subscription data. It's subscribing to a previous action. And most of the people in SCO are aware of the subscribe data, which is a pretty important feature. Then you can do a read line and append line. So what happens is when you run this, it basically creates a folder in a C drive and puts a random text. Okay. While that is running, I said, let's talk about the migration scenario. I said the first step is export the IPs. I'm not using any IPs here, so I'll skip that part. I'm using standard activities. I've already imported my standard activities in Azure Automation. So this is my Azure Automation account I have. And if I go to my assets, modules, I can actually see the standard activity, same module which I've showed earlier. I've already loaded that. Okay, that's good. Now I go to my third part where I'm going to export this. And I'm going to choose my C folder. I've already exported it earlier, but I'm going to replace that. Finish. So this is where I exported right now. I'll cancel this. So at 5.6, I've got this exported. Now I'll start the runbook migration piece. As I said, we just started working on this. So I'm going to show a demo using the PowerShell commandlets today, but we will be building the UX, the whole experience around that. But I want to get this out. This is the work done in just 3 weeks. So I really want to show the early builds my team has done. I'm just importing a module. I've just imported it. So this is the first step I'm doing, where I'm converting SCO runbook. This is a commandlet I'm using, and this is the path what I'm actually selecting. That's where just minimize it so you can actually see that. So this is where my path C : where's my runbook is, and I'm saying this is my output folder, Ignite demo. So once I hit enter, once this runs, I should get an intermediate format here. So the way we are doing this import and export is first you create a temporary format called .runbook. Now we actually do an import. So my first commandlet worked. Now I'll try my second commandlet. Can you see this now? I didn't have a zoom it on this. Can you see that? Font size, view. Okay? Excellent. I should have got zoom in. Now zoom it. Okay, thanks. So what I'm doing is first time I'm passing a parameter called prod1. So in order to import into my Azure Automation, it requires some configuration. I need to know my Azure subscription information, what account I'm using, what resource group I'm using. So I'm parameterizing that and passing that as a prod1 so that I can export that to any environments. But you can really give that as a parameter to the commandlet. All I'm saying is import graph runbook. And I'm selecting the same path, what I selected right now, C : ignite, and I'm selecting that runbook, the .runbook file, what I've just shown, what just got created. This is an optional parameter where if one can override the name. So if you want to test multiple versions, you can override the name, or you can just leave it like that. So I'll call, say, ignite. So I just renamed it so that we can actually see that stuff. Now, when I run this command, first should ask my Azure information. Then you should go back and load this runbook in my Azure. I just want to show you that I've got 10 runbooks. So but let me run this now. It's running. It should ask for my Azure information. And so during this import process, it's actually doing all the necessary mapping. Still remember my password, I guess, after drinking long last night. Okay, now it's going to import that. So what's happening during the import process, it maps the standard activities, it maps integration packs, it tries to preserve the graph structure and all the properties of the graph, like properties, links, joins, conditions. That's why it's taking a little bit of time, and I also blame this VM. So it says it's been imported. Okay, let's go to our Azure automation, and pretty soon I should see this runbook. There you go, runbook migration ignite. The cool thing, let's wait for the next thing, is we have to see whether does it really preserve all the structure what we talked about. Let's take a quick minute and see this thing. It has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 activities, some conditions, some joins, and some splits. Okay, fingers crossed. It's loading. There you go. So it has got the same features, whatever we had. If you look at this one, you can actually see same parameter I had, C::parameter demo. And other cool thing is, if you look at my randomized data, it actually shows all the parameters what I had in scope. So it carried forward everything, whatever it had. And another cool thing is, it actually also carried forward the subscription data. This is the latest feature what we worked in there. So you can actually see it's subscribing to generate random text, subscribing to previous activity. And it also preserved the splits and everything there. So let's publish this. And you can run this either Azure or hybrid. How many folks have heard of this hybrid connectivity feature in Azure automation? We've been talking about from last 3 days. Oh, so very few. So I'll start this runbook. That's where I'll talk more about it. So this is let me start this. So what is hybrid runbook worker? So basically with Azure automation, just a couple of days back, we released a new feature where it allows a hybrid connectivity feature through which you can manage your on-prem resources. And that hybrid connectivity is possible using hybrid runbook workers. So it's essentially a runbook worker running our on-premise machine in your data center to manage all your resources. So with one tool, you can manage your cloud resources, either Azure or non-Azure, AWS, RightScale, any of them, or even your on-prem resources, Microsoft Stack, non-Microsoft Stack, like VMware, OpenStack, any of those stuff. So now I've run this on a hybrid runbooker called Ravi. I think this is my hybrid runbook worker. Let's just go there. So this is the hybrid runbook worker I selected, Ravi hybrid, called Ravi Chin demo, I think. So what should happen that machine is, when I go to that machine, on a C drive, I should see a folder called runbook migration demo, and that should get created and should show a random file here. So there's already a folder which I've created yesterday. Let's see the file. It's at 5.6 here, 11.28, just like 128 here. It actually shows the file got created. So this runbook got ran on an on-premise machine. So that's the power of both hybrid runbook worker and migration. You can migrate runbooks to Azure automation and then run on local or Azure, whichever you want. So that completes the runbook migration demo. And this is a quick overview I was talking about. Is this the one? Okay. So this is the one I was talking about, hybrid overview. With one automation solution, you can manage the cloud resources like Azure resources or non-Azure resources or your even on-prem environments. So with that, I'll hand over to Alex to talk about our core data center scenarios. I was talking about earlier, with SMA, you can manage heterogeneous environments, Linux, Windows environments, Unix environments. You can manage public clouds, Azure, AWS, or your private cloud like VMware, OpenStack. So Alex has a lot of cool demos. I'll let over take over him.
All right. All right. Yeah, so like Ravi was saying, SMA is not just for your on-premises infrastructure or even just your Azure infrastructure. It's for really any kind of infrastructure you could imagine managing through PowerShell. And that's the reason we built it on PowerShell. And as we talk to customers, we're seeing more and more that data centers are kind of just exploding with more and more different systems. Like we got Windows servers. Over here we have all these Linux servers too. They have totally different processes. The guys won't even talk to us. So we're looking to build out SMA to be something that allows you to bring all these systems you have that might be very partitioned right now into one management tool. And so I'm going to show you some of these scenarios that you might be facing. This will only be up for a second. So the first one of these is heterogeneous management. You have Linux systems in your environment. Maybe they're in the cloud, maybe they're on-prem. How is service management automation going to talk to those? And I'm going to show you this by showing a prototype of a feature we've actually been working on for the past few weeks, which is an integration module for invoking SSH commands. So basically providing you an SSH client for your SMA runbooks. Oh, and first, let me just show you. I have in Azure, I have this virtual machine running. This is a Linux machine. And I'm going to try and talk to this from service management automation. So over here, we're back in the service management automation portal. And here is the module I was talking about. For now, since it's an early prototype and we're still figuring out kind of what customers want, and please come up to us afterwards if you have feedback about this or any additional feature ideas. But we have a single activity in here, invoke SSH command. And the nice thing about putting this in an integration module is you get a lot of conveniences around how you're going to authenticate. And you may have noticed it on the previous screen, but one of those is, let's search one away. I have what we call a connection object. And I think Ravi mentioned these earlier, and these carry over from SCO. But this is a type of object that's defined by this particular integration module. And using this object, I have a really easy way of defining what's this computer that I'm going to connect to, what's its host name, or you could even put the IP, what port, I have the standard SSH port right now, and what's the username and password I'm going to use to connect. And because it's in the service management automation asset store, it's encrypted, it's stored securely, and you can't just come in here and look at the password. It's safe in the asset store. And because it's there, I can reference it from a runbook. So now I can show you a really simple runbook that'll use this module. Before I show you the code, I'm just going to click Start so that it's all ready for us. So this is it. Really basic kind of proof of concept, but this is showing you how to use that connection I was just showing you in the asset store. So commandlets of this form in service management automation are used to withdraw things from this store. And so that way you can keep your runbooks free from any data like passwords that's either sensitive or that changes a lot. You can centralize all of that. So any runbook I have that wants to make a connection to this machine, they'll all reference that same connection. It keeps the PowerShell really clean. And it means that if I have to change the password or update the host name or something, I do it in one place, and all my runbooks keep working. And so all I'm doing here is taking that connection, using it to authenticate, and then adding a user. So that's probably finished already. Completed. So just to prove to you that that actually did something, I have a connection to this machine open. And let's just see if that user exists now. I named him Mr. Sma. And there he is, and ready to start configuring more if you wanted to get more advanced. But you could imagine running really any commands you could do in here through service management automation and start to kind of bring some order to the variety of operating systems you might have in your environment. So that's the first thing I wanted to show. The next thing is public clouds beyond just Azure. So we also know that many customers, beyond just having a variety of operating systems, they have a variety of clouds. And they might have AWS, they might have OpenStack running on-premise, they might have Rackspace. And so again, things are really kind of spreading out, getting a little scattered, and SMA can bring some order to this. And I chose AWS as an example because it's the perfect way to, it's a perfect illustration of why we built SMA on PowerShell. AWS ships their own PowerShell commandlets, AWS tools for Windows PowerShell. And if you just download this module, you import it into SMA without any kind of module modifications, and you're ready to go. SMA can talk to your AWS environment. So I'm going to show you an example of that, too. Oh, and again, keep forgetting. So here's my AWS EC2 management console. I have one demo machine running up there. It's in the running state. And I'm going to treat this like we see a lot of our customers treat their Azure environments. One really popular thing we see, probably the most popular runbooks of all, are Start VM and Stop VM. People love running these on a schedule using SMA. Every evening, they shut down, say, all their lab VMs. In the morning, they bring them back up. Saves them a whole bunch of money because now they're not running their VMs for, say, 8 hours out of the day. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with Amazon instead of Azure. Once again, I'll start it, and then we'll take a look at the runbook. So this one has a little more stuff. But again, we can see another option for hiding sensitive information that your runbooks need to access. Right off the bat here, I have an access key and a secret key, and these are the pair of credentials that are going to authenticate me to AWS. And this is how their PowerShell module handles authentication. And so I've stored these in a service management automation variable. And that way, again, these variables are strings. They're encrypted. I got the key from the portal, and they're safe in the service management automation store. But my runbooks are able to use them and authenticate and not expose this data in places where you don't want it. And so all I'm doing here is using some of their basic commandlets, get EC2 instance, get all my instances, and then I'm going to loop over them and say, hey, if I have any running instances, let's shut them down. And if I link this, if I were to link this runbook to one of SMA's schedules, then I could run this, say, every evening, and every evening my VMs would shut down, and I wouldn't be running them when I don't need them. So let's look at the job output. This is completed. And I have a little bit of output. We found one VM. It has this ID. That's the one we just saw in the portal. And it's now in a, well, hopefully stop state. Don't know what happened to the output there. But let's take a look. And now it stopped. So now you're not being billed for that VM when you don't need it. And so, again, this is just a simple example of SMA bringing some order to the huge amount of systems you might be using in your data center, and using it in a way that people love to use it this way with Azure. They love to use it with their on-prem, but you can use it the same way with just about any cloud you can think of. And I have one more demo for you. And I've called this third-party systems. So AWS is a great example because they ship a PowerShell module because they recognize how awesome PowerShell is. And as a result, SMA can consume this module, and we can do any kind of work it exposes against our AWS resources. This is similar for a variety of systems. Of course, everything from Microsoft is going to ship PowerShell modules, so you can automate those. Plenty of other vendors ship PowerShell modules, VMware, but not all of them do. So I'm going to show you an OpenStack environment I have set up. Yet another option for setting up a cloud. We're seeing, this is the OpenStack portal. We're seeing this gain a lot of popularity, but they don't provide PowerShell tools. So in SMA, at least at first, it seems like, well, how's SMA going to talk to this? It would be really nice to unify this in with all my other clouds and all my other operating systems. What are we going to do? And so this is for maybe a slightly more advanced user, but I have actually authored a OpenStack PowerShell module. You write it like you would write any other PowerShell module. You import it into SMA, and now, once again, your runbooks have this functionality. So I've just exposed a few basic activities here for the sake of example, and we'll see it in a runbook. And if you're curious and you want to see kind of what authoring a module like that looks like, it's very simple. I mean, I didn't have to use C# or anything. I just wrote the module in PowerShell. Really, it's just a few lines. I think the parameter listings take up like half the file. And so this is just an example function from the module. And this is how you can start to author modules very quickly using PowerShell to talk to these systems, even if they don't provide PowerShell modules on their own. So let's see an example of that actually running in a runbook. Once again, I'll start it. And here we're going to have even one more example of credential management and service management automation. Here I have an option we haven't seen before, get automation PowerShell credential, which this is a plain PowerShell credential object, which we allow you to store in the service management automation asset store. And here I'm retrieving it. I've written my module to use a regular PowerShell credential to authenticate itself against my OpenStack environment. And then I'm just going to print some output down here. It shows you the flavors you have available. It'll show you the server instances you have running. This is just to show the connectivity, show you pulling data out of your environment. And you could imagine doing whatever sort of processing you might want to it. And then finally, just to show some real action, I'm going to deploy a new server instance in my environment. Looks like the job is done. So here's the output from some of these commandlets from the module. It's going to show me just doing a little sanity check, making sure it can connect to the host. It's showing me what are the available kind of server instances I might deploy on there. And I picked one. I hard-coded in the ID. You might have noticed that. But you could also retrieve them from these objects that the module is returning to you. Search through it, pick the ID you want, and deploy that. And then finally, I'm just going to deploy an image. And you may have noticed it in the runbook. It's not outputted here, but I believe I called it hello from SMA. So one more time. Let's see if that actually worked. I have a demo project set up, so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at my compute overview. Looks like it worked because I have 2 instances now. Before I just had 1. You probably saw that in the runbook output. But let's just take a look. And there it is. Hello from SMA, a new server instance running to time created 1 minute ago. And so here, just one more scenario, we have SMA managing yet another environment. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ravi for some of our futures of System Center Orchestrator and service management automation. But hopefully now you have some idea of how SMA can bring order to all the different systems in your data center. And please come up to us afterwards and ask us about it if you have any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Those are pretty cool demos. As you can see, with SMA, you can manage your Windows environments, Unix environments, public clouds. We give equal love to Azure or AWS. And we also showed about how you manage a private clouds thing there. And we also talked about some of the best practices for authoring modules. There's a plenty of blogs which talks about the best practice for authoring modules, authoring runbooks, authoring assets. In some of the blogs, we also went to the details of what challenges if you don't have use assets. What's the workaround? Why do you should use this? So go to our blogs. There's a lot more details we put on our blogs. It's our team practice that we blog out at a regular schedule. So we'll connect with you. Okay. So next we'll talk about Orchestrator vNext. What's our vNext future plans looks like? I'm sure many of you are waiting for this last slide. I want to reiterate, we've been hearing so many times from so many customers, and in the last few days, I've seen at least 10 people asking, what happens to Orchestrator? It's going to die down. I've seen SMA, I see Azure Automation, what's going to happen? So we want to re-emphasize that we are shipping System Center 2016. We'll have both SCO and SMA. Both of them will be released. We'll be making targeted improvements in both SCO and SMA. If there's any customer issues, most important issues, we will address that. And we'll also be releasing the update rollups. How many people are installing latest update rollups? Yeah, so we'll be doing some fixes there. So it's not going away, it's there. We'll support until it's live there. So now let's talk about what we have today. Before I go to the vNext, so you have your Orchestrator for your traditional data center. I was talking about if you're using traditional data center and you're using graphical authoring, continue to use that. It has its own interface, it has graphical authoring, it has its own engine, highly available engine, and it has integration packs which allow you to talk to all third-party systems. With SMA and Azure Automation, yes, both of them have a portal, and we have authoring experience where you can use a PowerShell in SMA, or you can use graphical or PowerShell in Azure Automation. We have the highly available, scalable, powerful engine which is backed up by PowerShell. So the huge community comes with that. It unlocks a lot more features of the PowerShell. And integration is done by integration modules, and we have seen a lot of examples that's doing that today. Next comes the pretty picture. So this is what we can see in this thing. So there's a SCO and Orchestrator. They continue to exist. Now we have released an Azure Automation which can manage any of your public clouds, or you can manage your private clouds. And this is a new hybrid connectivity feature what we had, which allows you to manage all your on-prem resources. And there's a lot more features what we have, like hybrid runbook one feature. We have integrated with the PowerShell DSE, and we have a Linux support, and there'll be some native. Right now, you have used an SSH command from the Codeplex or something, right?
Yeah.
And Alex will be shipping out like a native SSH module pretty soon in the next few weeks there. Mm-hmm. And we have a whole gallery. So one of the drawbacks people complained about Orchestrator was when I open the designer, once I install the runbook designer, I get a blank designer. What the hell I should do with that? With Azure Automation, we have the whole gallery, which give you templates to get started, like patching process, provisioning process. How do I connect to VMs? How do I stop my virtual machines? So get started that. And we have the whole graphical authoring, which we just launched in Azure Automation this week. And the whole runbook migration concepts I talked about. So we are building the migration tools. If you are interested to go to the cloud, use that tool so you can migrate all your existing investments from Orchestrator to the cloud. And the role-based access control. So we have not invested a lot in the first thing, in the first release of the Azure Automation, but Azure Automation, right now, if you look at Azure, is backed up by ARM resource provider. It has some basic RBAC capabilities like an admin role or a reader role. We will be building pretty soon our own operator role where you can control runbooks and everything. That's pretty early in the game. We are actually designing that stuff. Should come soon. That's a list of our priorities there. So this is what we'll have. We'll have one automation solution. As you showed the picture, you can manage your cloud resources on-prem resources, private clouds, public clouds, any of the clouds there. We'll have the authoring experience where you can do graphical authoring if you like, or if you're a real PowerShell guy, you can use it in PowerShell. And you have the highly powerful engine. I talked about all this stuff. And we have the tools to migrate. So just want to touch base on the key takeaways again. I know I want to repeat that. You must have seen hundreds of sessions, terabytes of data in your brain. So 4 things I want to remember when you go out of this room is SCO and SMA are completely interoperable with each other. You can coexist there, and SMA can call SCO, SCO can call SMA. They are complementary to each other. Second thing is SMA truly offers a bidirectional integration. With SMA, you can talk to any third-party system, and a third-party system can talk to us and integrate your business process. And with SMA, you can manage private clouds, public clouds, hosted clouds, anything there. And we have orchestrated investments carried forward, so we are building the migration tool so that all your investments are carried forward, nothing being lost. So these are all the related sessions. There are a few sessions on Thursday with Azure Automation. I think you should go this. It actually talks about very detailed of all our new features in Azure Automation. Some of our colleagues are doing it. There's one on Friday as well, automation roadmap. You should see that, which will actually go through a lot more details. There's one more on Thursday, heterogeneous configuration using Microsoft. Anything use a buzzword like Azure Automation, SMA, please attend that. You get a lot more detailed insights and all the features what we have. This is the Azure challenge sweepstakes Azure team wants to give out to you so that you can participate in the sessions. And the last thing I want to mention that the survey handouts I've given to you, please fill it up if you have not done. We really request your feedback and really value also feedback to make a product better. As I said, we take that pretty seriously. And just don't remember the second question where we asked you if we can contact you so that you can work very closely. So if you are interested to work with us closely, please do select that. We will definitely reach out and work with you closely and work you through our development process. So that you can get early feedback of what features are coming and you have a say in the design and feedback and everything there. So with that, I think I know we are like about 8 minutes left. I'll open the floor questions. And I said, me and Alex will not get lunch until we answer your questions. So we'll be here. Lunch is a lunch break.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a question here. I'll take the question. Excellent question. So we've heard this so many times. The question is, does Azure Automation or support native PowerShell? We have heard this feedback, and we are working very seriously on that. This is one of our lists what we are considering that. Thank you. Correct. In terms of our strategy would be, the question was asking about the timeline, when that would be. Our strategy would be first we'll put that in the cloud first. So we'll support a native PowerShell in the cloud first. When we have enough bake time, then we'll roll it out to the on-prem. That's the strategy. We are going cloud first. That's Microsoft strategy. And if you have like specifically care about that, reach out to us offline. We'll give you some we'll take some feedback and we'll see what we can do. Yeah, I don't know who was first. Sorry. Excellent. So there's a version of Kelvarian IPC is talking about. I have David Ooster from Kelvarian. So we are working. The question is about what happens when this is about migration in the context of migration you're asking about, right? So the question is, in the context of migration, what happens to the IPs that's built by Kelvarian? So the answer is we are working very closely with Kelvarian to convert this into modules, and we have the gentleman there. We are partnering with them. I have a question here. I think the PowerShell version is PowerShell 5, WMF5. We download from the WMF5, that's PowerShell 5. I think it should be 64-bit. I'm going to double check on that. No, you're talking about SCO? You're asking specifically about SCO or? Oh, SCO, yeah. SCO. Okay. So I want to double check. So you're asking about a SCO. SCO is still a 32-bit process, and it requires a PowerShell remoting to do that. And we have considered that. I mean, it's not the first time we have heard, like, why can't it be a change to 64 bits? It's quite a big change to change the architecture of 64 bits. We have to make some architecture changes. But it's a very great feedback. We'll take that. consider that? Service manager integration, right? So the question is about service manager integration. So I said that's the last piece in our list of things in the runbook migration we are working on. So that'll be worked on right now. So we have plans to work on the service manager integration.
We have another.
I saw tools for converting up to the cloud. Can you get them back down to Orchestrator?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I saw you have tools for converting your runbooks up from Orchestrator to
Azure automation.
Can you get them back?
So can you get back in SMA?
So can you go from Azure to SCO?
No, not right now. So you're saying that's a bidirectional, and I'm taking from SCO. The question is, the runbook which I've shown, I'm exporting from SCO and importing into Azure automation. The question is, can I take that and import back into the SCO? Not right now. That's not something what we have not invested. John.
You had VNext, but VNext you had Orchestrator VNext, but your slide you had a mixture of SMA, Azure automation, VNext.
Hi.
Show the next sessions for tomorrow and Friday.
Yeah, sure.
Let me repeat the question. I'll come back here. So you're saying that in my slide, let me go back to the slide.
Yeah, we talked about VNext, we just changed something before that.
Yeah, I'll go back. Okay. What the hell? Why it's going back? 1 second. Okay, I'm not teaching. Okay, he's changing it.
Oh.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Sorry. That's a SCO. When you say in the orchestrated umbrella, there's both SCO and SMA.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
No. These features are purely from the Azure automation. Okay, so what's coming in vNext of Orchestrator and SMA? That's the question. Let's start with only Orchestrator. So what's vNext coming in Orchestrator? It's primarily a lot of bug fixes and some targeted customer fixes which they ask. I can get a compile list to you. Yeah, it's pure, no specific new features there. It's all about bug fixes and important customer issues. Sorry, I didn't get your question for SCO. Sorry, I was thinking about SMA. You were there.
Well, I've got one for SMA. How about that?
Sure, I'll take that.
Are there any plans to either make it a standalone product, separate from Azure Pack, or reduce the amount of roles to build from Azure Pack to get it?
I get it.
That's all you want, and not Azure Pack.
Excellent question. So the question is, for the service management automation, is there any way to provide a standalone tool separating from that? We have heard some feedback on that. There's something what we are working, but I'm not committing anything to that. We have heard that. So it should align with the overall strategy, but we have heard that and we're considering that. So.
What about graphical interface like you have for Azure automation back when we got
Okay. I think I don't have to repeat question. Enough people haven't. And so the question is basically saying that the graphical authoring experience what you have in the cloud, will that come down to SMA? So our strategy is cloud first. We're going to put it in the cloud first to try out that stuff. And right now we're investing more on the hybrid automation. So that's where you can use hybrid automation and run anywhere. But eventually, after some time, we'll try to bring it back. Even can answer that. This is an overall strategy question. How are we going to align this? How are we going to bring graphical on-prem?